Okay, hello friends. Today we will be continuing the discussion on autonomic nervous system, and I will take in previous video we have finished the cholinomimetics. Now in this video we will be talking about the parasympatholytics or anticholinergics. Okay, I can see anticholinergics or parasympatholytics. We are already well versed with the receptor concept. I think that receptors we said we have muscarinic receptors, we have nicotinic receptors, and if you stimulate them you are going to say a mimetic action, and if you are going to block them you will say lytic action or anticholinergic action, isn't it? So what is the use of this anticholinergics? Anticholinergics will either do anti-muscarinic action or they will do anti-nicotinic action. If they are doing anti-muscarinic action, you call the anti-muscarinics. And if they are blocking the nicotinic, it will depend now which type of nicotinic. If they are blocking the NM receptors, if they are blocking, block I show like this, okay? Block I show like this. Okay, is the screen visible now, guys? So block I show like this. So neuromuscular blockers will be called, if they are blocking the neuromuscular receptors, the NM receptors will be called as neuromuscular blockers. They will be called as neuromuscular blockers. And if they are blocking the NN receptors, we call them ganglion blockers. Please write the way we are making you write. Please write in the way we are making you write. Ganglion blockers, NN blockers, they are called ganglion blockers. If they are blocking NM receptors, we call it neuromuscular blockers. Now we have certain classification of drugs, like we had the classification of the cholinergic drugs, isn't it? We said if I want to use the drugs as muscarinic, I will be giving, I will be using the muscarinic in post-operative paralytic ileus, post-operative urinary retention, diagnosis of bronchial hyperreactivity, Sjogren syndrome, belladonna poisoning, Alzheimer's, glaucoma, tecrine, donepezil, rivastigmine, galantamine, methacholine, pilocarpine, cevimeline, bithanicol, neostigmine, physostigmine, ecothiophyte, isn't it? We have yesterday said everything about this, the past videos. We have actually nailed these concepts. Now, today, the same concept I will be using, but I will be giving a blocker. I will be giving a blocker. Okay. Now, see, my anticholinergics, if I say my anticholinergics, they can be directly, they can be selective blockers, they can be, why it's not writing, so yeah, selective blockers, they can be selective blockers, they can be non-selective blockers. Non-selective blockers, I should write blockers with simple word, okay? I should write it with, making it more simple. Don't make so many big notes, don't write a new book. So selective blockers, non-selective blockers. Another thing I can have is other mechanism action. Other mechanism, I am blocking something. I am doing something such that I am not having the cholinergic or cholinomimetic action. Now, selective blockers, if I talk about selective blockers, selective receptor blockers, that means I have to write the names of the blockers. That means, for example, if I give an example, if I want to block M1, I will be giving what? Pyrenzepine. If I want to block M1, I will be giving pyrenzepine, tilenzepine. If I am blocking M2, I will be saying, like I have what blocker I have? Tryptamine. If I am blocking, I'm giving you an example. If I want to block M3, one of the example can be darifenacin, solifenacin. I will be telling you in detail. So these are the things that you are able to block the receptors, and these will be selective. But if I want to say non-selective, yesterday you have learned a very nice concept. about non-selective blockers, that is atropine. That's why you were giving atropinizing the patient before giving what? If you wanted a muscarinic action, you were not giving atropine. Why? Because you wanted muscarinic action. It was non-selective. It was going to the gut. It was going to the that. It was having those actions. But if you only wanted the nicotinic action in the yesterday's lecture, what you did, you atropinized the patient. You had a prior atropinization of the patient, which led you give the effects in case of which were beneficial. In case of myasthenia gravis, cobra bite, reversal of the non-depolarizing muscle relaxation. These three words should always be on your tip. You are atropinizing the patient, myasthenia gravis, cobra bite, and reversal of non-depolarizing agents. So non-selective blockers are atropine, hyoscine, atropine, hyoscine. Sir, what are the other mechanisms? Either they will be decreasing the choline uptake, or they will be decreasing the secretion of ACH from the vesicle, or they will be decreasing the release of ACH, or they will be decreasing the uptake of ACH, vesicular uptake. They are not taking more ACH, that's why they are not able to make more ACH. That means they are finally leading to decreased cholinomimetic action, isn't it? So I hope in the last diagram, we have made that diagram. Do we remember that diagram? We had made that diagram and we said here, if I was blocking in the previous video, what I was doing, who was doing that? Hemicolinium I was using, hemicolinium. And then I said, if you want to block the acetylcholine going inside the vesicle, you will give Vesamicol. If you want to give Vesamicol. If you want to block the botulinum toxin, blocks the fusion of this. And I was giving, do we remember that? These are all anticholinergics. These are all anticholinergics because they won't allow the cholinomimetic effect to happen. They will be stopping such a process, one process or two process, so that they don't give you the cholinomimetic action. They are preventing the cholinomimetic action. They don't want you to have the cholinomimetic action. Is it fine? Is it fine? Okay. Now let me see, since we in the past videos we have talked more about, we have taken them in an oriented fashion. We have said what is happening in the stomach, what is happening in the heart, what is happening in the bronchus, what is happening in the bladder, what is happening in the glands, what is happening in the eye, isn't it? So same way I will be taking this so that you also get oriented in that way. So stomach, see, if I go into the stomach or if I go into the CNS, let me take the CNS. What to take, CNS or gut? What to take, guys? CNS. Let us take CNS. Okay, let us take CNS. Head, from the head we start. So what are the CNS effects of anticholinergics? Number one, if I go into the CNS, if I take first atropine, what is the effect of atropine on the CNS? Why it's not writing? What is the effect of atropine on the CNS? It is a CNS stimulant. It is a CNS stimulant. There is another anticholinergic that is called scopolamine. Scopolamine. Scopolamine is a depressant. Scopolamine is a CNS depressant. That means it will give me an amnestic action. Amnestic action. Not amnestic action. That is memory problems, isn't it? Okay. Now, what will happen? This scopolamine, okay. So talking about this, atropine. Is the screen clear, friends? Is the screen clear? Okay, fine. Okay. I thought it got stuck. Okay. Now let me take hyoscine. Okay. This hyoscine is having, it's a non-selective. So what will happen is this hyoscine will, since it is causing depression, since it's causing CNS depression, and it's also causing amnestic action. It's also causing amnestic action, amnestic action. So it causes a condition which is called twilight sleep. We remember the movie Twilight. Twilight sleep. So it causes twilight sleep. Okay. So it was used in before, to determine whether the person is speaking truth or not. We used it as a lie detector. We used it as a lie detector to say whether a person is speaking truth or not. Okay. So truth serum. You suspected someone of anything and you wanted to test, you used to do this. Okay. What is the another use of anticholinergic? If I talk about scopolamine, you are using it as a transdermal patch. No, it's one and the same thing. Okay. Scopolamine has no, one and the same thing. So transdermal patch, scopolamine, you are using it for, since it is depressing your CNS, it is depressing your CNS. So you will be using it for motion sickness. You will be using it for motion sickness, isn't it? For example, this is a mountain. So you are coming to, for example, any valley or traveling. Okay. So your car will start going like this and this will cause motion sickness. This will cause motion sickness. So you will give us CNS depression. Because why motion? Because motion sickness is because once you have the circular motion, you are stimulating the vestibular system. I love medicine. Vestibular system. Once vestibular system gets activated, it triggers the chemotrigger zone, CTZ zone, and you get vomiting. And you get vomiting. CTZ zone and you get vomiting. So what you do is you directly give the hyoscine. You give the hyoscine here. Okay. And this will inhibit. This is a depressant. Is it clear? So you are inhibiting the system and you are not. Okay. Now in this motion sickness, I remember once we are going through this mountain, you are what is happening? Your partial pressure of oxygen is going down. The partial pressure in the oxygen is going down. So what will happen? You will have symptoms of what? Mountain sickness. Mountain sickness. This is two different things. There are three things. One is motion sickness. One is mountain sickness. One is morning sickness. Morning sickness happens in pregnancy. So motion sickness, mountain sickness. Don't confuse them. Don't confuse them. This is mountain sickness. Mountain sickness. You will be giving what drug? Drug of choice is acetazolamide. Drug of choice is acetazolamide, guys. Acetazolamide. Beautiful concept. It's a beautiful concept. You will be giving acetazolamide. Okay. By the way, yeah. Okay. So this is the effect you can use, or you can use what? Uh, what you do, by the way, to this transdermal patch? You apply it behind your ear. You apply it behind the ear, isn't it? You are applying it behind the ear, and then you are having that action. Okay. Okay. Now we also have some central anticholinergic drugs for the CNS. Central anticholinergic agents. What are those? Trihexyphenidyl, phenydyl. You ever call it benzexol, benztropine. Feels like benz. Then biperdin. Okay, we are using these drugs, central anticholinergics, as for drug-induced Parkinsonism. I'll be telling you what is drug-induced Parkinsonism. So, drug-induced Parkinsonism. Drug-induced Parkinsonism, you are using this. Okay, so treatment will be For drug-induced Parkinsonism, you will be using this. See, normally you have a balance of acetylcholine. You have a balance of acetylcholine and dopaminergic neurons in your body. You have normal balance of acetylcholine and dopamine. What happens in Parkinsonism is your dopaminergic neurons get degenerated. Degeneration of dopaminergic neurons. What will happen? This balance will go up, this will go down. Okay. Now what will be the treatment? Either I increase the dopamine or I decrease the acetylcholine. Isn't it? It's common sense. It's common sense. Even in a kindergarten boy I will say, my dear, this is getting high, this is getting low. What I should do? He will say either increase this or decrease this. Isn't it? I don't know why pharmacology people feel that it's so tasty. Simple concept, guys. Are we clear? We are not getting replies from the students. That means they are not interested in pharmacology. They are interested in something else. They are enjoying Sunday, isn't it? You are enjoying Sundays. We enjoy Sundays with medicine because we are doctors. We enjoy medicine with Sunday medicine. Okay, you should speak like that. Yes, sir. They are getting it. So you have dopaminergic degeneration. What will happen? You will be having either you will increase the acetylcholine, decrease the acetylcholine, give any anticholinergic, or increase the dopamine. Okay. So what drugs you give? You give drug-induced Parkinsonism. What you are doing is you are giving a drug and that is causing Parkinsonism. If drug is causing any Parkinsonism, you will be giving, what you will be doing? You will be giving these drugs. Okay, these drugs you can give. These are anticholinergics, isn't it? So are we talking right now about dopaminergic, or we are talking about anticholinergics? What we are talking right now, what box we have made? We have made anticholinergics. That's what I have given, anticholinergics. This also I have to show you because you are not answering. So common sense. Okay, fine. CN is done. Let us go into the eye. Eye, you want to go into the eye? Okay, let us tour the eye. Let us go to the eye, the anticholinergic effects in the eye. This is eye of Sundar, isn't it? Or Sana. Okay, students. So, see guys, we have what receptors? M3 receptors. We have M3 receptors. You were stimulating the M3 receptor. What you were getting? Meiosis. You were getting meiosis. Now, if I block M3 receptors, what I will get? Mydriasis. Mydriasis means dilatation. This was constriction. This was constriction. Okay. Easy. Now, what is the use? What is the use of this? See, guys, if I take, where will I be using mydriatic action? Where I will be using this mydriatic action? See, if I want to go for a check the retina, I hope you know from the basic structure of this is my okay. So if I talk about this is the pupil, okay, and this is your retina. This is your retina. Now light is coming from this side, making it easy. I'm not teaching ophthalmology right now, otherwise I will get landed into ophthalmology. Okay, and then we won't be coming back in this world. So see, what I have to do, I have to see this in a bigger picture. I have to see this more. So should I dilate this or not? Should I mydriatic it or not, so that more light passes and I can see? Guys, to examine the retina in the ophthalmology unit, I am using anticholinergics. That's why once you go to the ophthalmology unit, they will put a drop if they want to check your fundus. They will put some drops in your eye. Why? That's actually an anticholinergic. What will happen? That anticholinergic will cause a mydriatic action, resulting in cycloplegia also. So we have, for example, homartropine, we have cyclopentolate, we have tropicamide, we have atropine. Okay. So these all are used for mydriatic agent. So for fundoscopy, so anticholinergics, what they cause in eye? They cause mydriasis plus they cause cycloplegia, paralysis of the muscles. Cycloplegia. Okay, ciliaris. So see, I will tell you a story how this happens. So once this is dilated, what will happen? I will be visualizing more retina. More retina will be visualized, guys. More retina will be visualized. More retina will be visualized. If I had a narrow pore, what would have happened? I could have only seen this much on the retina. But if I am seeing this much, how much I can see? I can see so much high field. Is it clear? I can see so much big retina. This is called fundoscopy. So we use it in fundoscopy. Is it clear? Is anyone having any doubt? Even without your knowledge of anatomy, I am telling you this. You have to remember, like you can understand now. Even if you don't know anatomy, still you are able to understand. Okay, easy. Okay, so we are using it in the fundoscopy, but remember, we don't use it. It is contraindicated in angle closure glaucoma. Remember, I will be teaching you in glaucoma. Here, write a point. It is contraindicated in angle closure glaucoma. Angle closure glaucoma, anticholinergics are contraindicated. Okay. Fine. Now see guys, I give you another example. I take this lens. I take this lens. Okay. Now who is connected here? We have ciliaris. We have ciliaris muscle. So I take this apparatus here. I take this apparatus here. Okay. Now see, whatever contraction you do to the ciliary muscle, the its diameter will get changed accordingly. If you are contracting it more, then you will have a flat, more flat. You will have a more flat. Yes. That's why yeah, that's a good question. That it has it called blurring. You know, I give you an example. Okay, uh, you know, candlelight dinner. In the candlelight dinner, what happens? Some girls come with, they put atropine in their eye, isn't it? In the past also, they put atropine in the eye so that their eyes could look bigger. Do you know it? Some girls putting, we have seen, so that their eyes could look bigger. And bigger eyes means beautiful. Bigger eyes means beautiful. But do you know, they are not actually seeing you. For example, I am with my girlfriend. For example, I don't have, but I am with my girlfriend, and I am in a candlelight dinner. And what she did, she came to look more beautiful and attractive. No, to make her more attractive. No, to bring that sir towards her. What she did, she put atropine in her eyes. We can understand, as being a doctor, that pupil will get dilated. So eyes will look bigger. Eyes will look bigger. So what will happen? What will happen? I will be getting attracted. Oh my God, what a beautiful eyes. But literally, if I tell you, she is not able to see me because cycloplegia. She is not seeing you. You are seeing like this, eye in the eye, pupil in the pupil, your pupil in her pupil, your sclera in her sclera, your iris in her iris. But she is not literally seeing you because it causes cycloplegia. Are we able to understand? And atropine. Atropine is a long duration acting. She should not use atropine because atropine will have a longer duration of action, at least for 5 days. She will have cycloplegia for 5 days. No one gets blind. Okay, it's like the action we are using it. Okay, but yeah, atropine has its own side effects. Okay, so if you want to see the potent, more potent is the hyoscine. Okay, so it depends on the age group. I will be telling you. I got lost. I am stuck in your question. So dim light also dilate. Yes, dim light will definitely dilate. Why not? It is common sense, my dear. Dim light means less light. That means you want to see more. That means your eyes want to see more. It will dilate. It's simple. There is no need of making it a problem. Dim light, that means you are not getting light. That means you want eyes want to dilate so that it can see more things. Okay, I have taught you in parasympathetic. Don't tell me this question again. Okay, so candlelight plus atropine, this will give you more bigger eyes. No, I am not. I give an example. I give an example. Okay, if she comes to the candlelight dinner and still she uses the atropine, she will be having more bigger eyes, and then it makes you attractive. Okay, either she comes in candlelight dinner also alone, that will also cause dilation. But if she is using any, because girls mostly these days are using this. Okay, putting some eye drops in eyes. Now technology has evolved, medical science has evolved, pharmacology has evolved. So yeah, everyone is getting literate now. Even a person who is not from a medical background is, reading something about this in the internet, products, beauty products and everything. But as a doctor, we know everything has its own side effect. Okay. Yeah, where was I? I got lost. Yeah, this atropine, candlelight. Okay. Now what happens is whatever contraction you do the ciliaris, you will be changing the diameter of this lens. Okay. Fine. Now see what you are giving. You are giving anticholinergic. You are giving anticholinergic. That means you are blocking the M3 receptors. Now what is the concept of accommodation? Accommodation means when your ciliary muscle contracts. This contracts and changes the lens to make an image, on the retina. This is called accommodation. Now you are blocking it. That means you will be blurring. You are not able to accommodate. You are not able to accommodate. That means you will be blurring. You will be blurring. Once you are blurring, what is this called? Cycloplegia. Cycloplegia. You call it cycloplegia. Okay. This action we are using where not, don't remember candlelight now. Okay. Don't remember dates. Don't remember girl, boy and everything. And more than that, go do into more depth. That's you will get deviated. Some hormones will start activating. So don't go in that. Come back. So cycloplegia, blurring, cycloplegia. What is the use of the cycloplegia actually? You are able to know the number of your specs. What a beautiful concept, not species, specs. Whatever number you want for your eyes, that is the number of the specs you're getting. This is called refraction testing. Refraction testing, my dears. This is called refraction testing. Are we able to understand? So if you want to get the number of that eye, sometimes you say zero point 0.5, minus zero point 0.5, convergent lens, divergent lens. That is what will give you this cycloplegic action. This will help us. It will paralyze this muscle and we'll get the accurate. Get the accurate. Are we clear? Now this has its own, it has its own uses. I want to tell you, if I take an adult and I take a child, in adult, the tone is not so much. These muscles don't have so much tone, but in child, these have a high tone. Okay. So once you are increasing with age, you are going to have a decreased tone of these muscles. So that means in children, I have high tone. That means I have to give a cycloplegic drug, which is having the highest action, strongest action. I should give a cycloplegic that is having the strongest action. Is it clear? So what will I give? I will give atropine to the child. I will give atropine to the child. But problem is that it is long acting. See, I will give this atropine. I will give atropine to the child so that I can check the this refraction. But once I give atropine, he will have cycloplegic action for 7 days. He will have cycloplegic action for 7 days. What to do? What do you think? What should I do? No alternative. Still we give in child. Child, no problem. Child is child. Don't give it in adults. Don't give it in adults. We are still using it. Also, once we are giving this, you have to tell the patient. You have to tell the patient. No, no, no. We have to give it. Dose. It's not dose. I'm telling strongest action is something else. I have taught you in the basics of pharmacology. I have taught in the basics of pharmacology. Go to the basic video, general pharmacology. There is dose is different thing. Potency is different thing. Okay. Yeah. So atropine will be having some 7 days. Some books write 5 days. Okay. Like that. Weak action. Now I got a condition that is called iridocyclitis. I got a condition that is called iridocyclitis. What is iridocyclitis? I got any inflammation scenario happening in my, around the anterior chamber or posterior chamber. Okay. And that led to the iridocyclitis. This iridocyclitis, what happens that once this happens, it causes ciliary spasm, ciliary muscle spasm. Your ciliary muscles get spasm. So to relieve this spasm also you can use what? Anticholinergic. You can use anticholinergic. So this will cause spasm and you will have pain. To relieve this pain, you can use this action. Okay. So you had two uses of anticholinergics. One, to check the refractive error. To check the refractive error. Second thing, to have the fundus examination, fundoscopy. Clear? Is it any doubt any in the eye? Because some people are more confused in the eye. Yes, my dears. Is there any doubt in the eye? So what drugs you give? See, if you want to give in adults, okay, no, I want to say, how many we have, which we are using in the eye. We have atropine, we have homatropine, okay, and what else we have? We have cyclopentolate and tropicamide, fine. Now, which is the shortest acting? Which is the strongest? Atropine is the strongest. Strong, strong, strong. It can, no, it is used in that high tone, muscular tone in the child. Now, if I talk about, I had to say something. I forgot. I had a thought in my brain. I had a thought. I forgot. I had to say something. Okay. I don't know. I don't remember right now. Okay. I had a thought. So maybe it comes in some time. Tropicamide is shortest acting. So you use it in adults. So tropicamide in adults, atropine you can give in the child because they have that story. Okay, friends, is it clear? First, I want to see whether things are clear or not. Short acting adults, fine, because they have to drive also, isn't it? They have to drive. If I want to tell you hyoscine and atropine, who is more potent? H is more potent. H is more potent. Fine. Now, I is done. I is done. Let us go to what area? What area should we go, guys? What area? I. After that, where to go? Where to go, guys? No one is telling. That means no one wants to go. Bronchus, man, bronchus is there. Secretions are there right now. And bronchus is there, guys. Bronchus, and glands are also there. Don't forget your parts. Okay. So let us go to glands. And then we end the discussion. Okay, I think it takes one more video tomorrow, because we want to understand. It's not that we have to speak something fast. First, you should have an understanding. People are telling me, sir, why you teach so slowly? Because once you understand, then only you can teach. Nah? It's important to learn. It's not important that what we are finishing the pages. We should have conceptual, know where we are using, why we are using. There is a reason. Even if it takes time, the time is for, worth. It's worth it. It's worth it. You are taking time. But once you learn it, then you would remember it more easily. You are making notes also. Okay. I want to make it clear that it's my style to teach, and I teach in this style only. I do an exhaustive study of things and teach you. I have studied exhaustively and will teach you exhaustively. Okay. Whatever is required at your MBBS level. So glands will be, if I talk about the glands, okay, glands, see, normally your glands were secreting by M3. You had an M3 action, you were having secretions. You have no M3 blocking activity, what you will be having? Less secretion. That means my anticholinergics will cause dryness. That means dryness is the side effect of anticholinergics. Atropine is contraindicated through gut. Atropine is contraindicated in children. Why? Why? It causes hyperthermia. It causes hyperthermia. See, what is M3 blockers doing? They are causing decrease in the salivation. They're decreasing salivation. Let me write like this. Decreasing the salivation. They are decreasing the lacrimation. Why it's not writing, guys? Decrease in the lacrimation. They are decreasing the sweating. Now, this is a story I want to say. This decrease in sweating I want to take here so that you can remember. Decrease in the sweating, guys. Decrease in the sweating will cause what? Because sweating is responsible for relieving your body temperature. So once you decrease the sweating, you will get a fever that is called atropine fever. Atropine fever will cause hyperthermia. Because child, but what is the reason it causes death? Because child is more vigorous. He does more of outdoor activity. He is more active. So what will happen? More heat will be produced in him. It's only because of the sweating that you are able to release the heat. But in child, he's more active. He's he's physiologically active. So what will happen? He will have more production of heat inside the body. That means he will not be able to relieve the heat through sweating. What will happen? He will die. Death of the child. So will you give atropine in a patient? No. There are so many other drugs that you can give. Okay. Now this was about secretions. By the way, if I go into the bronchus also, I have to teach the bronchus in the constriction part, but bronchus in the secretory part. Bronchus have what? They have cilia. Okay, they have cilia. Once we are in the OT, what we do is we are giving anesthesia. That means this anesthesia will cause the ciliary paralysis also. Ciliary paralysis. Understood? So you have cilia in this. You have cilia. You are giving anesthesia in the OT. Once you give anesthesia, what will happen? These will get paralyzed. There will be ciliary paralysis. Once you have ciliary paralysis, that means secretions won't be able to go out. That means once the patient is producing secretions, he will be blocking his airway. It will be blocking his airway. That's why before giving anesthesia, we give anticholinergic. I love this concept. What a beautiful conceptual thing. We give anticholinergics before taking the person to OT. No, not taking OT, starting the surgery, we give that or anticholinergic and then we give the anesthetic so that my secretions are not producing. I'm decreasing the secretions. That's why I give anticholinergics. Is it clear? My ciliary muscles are not working due to anesthesia, but my secretions will be produced there. So what I will be doing, I will give anticholinergics, guys. Anticholinergics. Beautiful medical science. It's a beautiful subject. Really. No subject like this. Okay, and don't get conflicted with me. Okay, just my passion towards this. So glands and bronchus secretion will be. Let me take another gland also in this video. Okay, and then complete this. What to take? What to take, guys? What should I take? Let me take bronchus itself. Why to wait? Let us take bronchus itself. So what is the effect of anticholinergics or bronchus? First, I will tell you bronchus is doing bronchoconstriction. It causes bronchoconstriction. Normally you have M3 mediated bronchoconstriction, parasympathetic. But if you give M3 blocker, you will have bronchodilation. You will have bronchodilation. Bronchodilation. That means I can use this in asthma. I can use in asthma. I can use it in chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD patient. I can use this in, and you know the fastest acting of them. The fastest acting of them is, guys, ipratropium, tiotropium, ipratropium and tiotropium. Ipratropium. Let me write ipratropium and tiotropium. Tiotropium. Ipratropium has what? Ipratropium is, you know, Ipra. I had made a mnemonic for Ipra. Ipra is non-selective. She is a girl. She is non-selective. Ipra is a girl. I hope you understand Ipra is a girl, isn't it? From your common language. Ipra is a girl, isn't it? Ipra. Ipra. Ipra is a girl, isn't it? So Ipra is a girl and she is non-selective. So she is non-selective. Means she wants M1, she wants M2, she wants M3. Is it clear? So Ipra has non-selective action. But Tio allows M1, M3. Tio allows M1, M3. Tio allows M1, M3. Ipra allows 1, 2, 3. Tio allows 1, 3. Is it clear? Yeah. So they will block what? These receptors. This will block these receptors. Is it clear? You should not message me on the Zoom, please. Please don't message on the Zoom. We have a WhatsApp group for you here. Please text on that. So it's clear. So that's why we give anticholinergic. By the way, which anticholinergic you are giving in the secretions also? Glycopyrrolate. Glycopyrrolate you are giving. I forgot to tell you. Glycopyrrolate is used for pre-anesthetic medication. Okay, because that will cause a reflex bronchospasm. I want to prevent that. A reflex bronchospasm will happen. So this is to be prevented by giving a pre-anesthetic medication, that is glycopyrrolate. Fine. Let me take another. Bronchus. I should take now what? What should I take, guys? What is remaining? No, from its left side we have seen cardiovascular, isn't it? From its left side we have cardiovascular, I think, isn't it? So let us take the CVS. Why to wait? So what will happen in the CNS? CVS. Let us write CVS or heart. The next CVS or heart. Normally, once you stimulate the M2 receptors, what was happening in the parasympathetic activity? You were decreasing the heart rate. But once you block the M2 receptors, what will happen? You will increase the heart rate. That means I will be giving it in bradycardia. So it becomes the treatment for bradycardia. It becomes the treatment for atrioventricular block. Atrioventricular block. Wow. AV nodal block, guys. It's AV nodal block. Atropine is called tachycardia. But I want to tell you, once you are giving the atropine in the beginning, you will be having bradycardia. We have inhibition of M2 presynaptic receptors. I will be telling you that M2 presynaptic receptors will be stimulated, presynaptic M2, and they are inhibitory. So first, once you are giving an atropine, you will be having initially a bradycardia. Presynaptic muscarinic receptors M2 are blocked, will cause bradycardia. But once you increase the dose of atropine, you will be having the tachycardia, because you will be now inhibiting the postsynaptic M2 receptors. You will be now inhibiting the postsynaptic M2 receptors. So initially what happened, you had a presynaptic muscarinic receptor inhibition due to the atropine action, which will cause bradycardia. But once you increase the dose, you will be having the inhibition of postsynaptic M2 receptors, leading to tachycardia. That's why atropine is a very nice treatment for arrhythmias. Okay, that's why even if you have a patient of digitalis induced bradycardia, you will be giving atropine, or even if you have an AV block, you'll be given atropine. Okay, but remember, sir, what about BP? What about inotropic action? Not so much, negligible effect. There is no effect that much effect on the. So whatever receptors I've told you, those are the receptors. Okay, I'll be repeating this again. Some people got lost. I'm saying muscarinic receptors, they are present on what? What muscarinic receptors? You have brakes. I taught you in the basics. You have brakes. So when you are giving M2 blocker, more acetylcholine is released. Once you have M2 blocker, you will be having more amount of acetylcholine. That means you will be having more amount of bradycardia. So basically, in the beginning, presynaptic blockage led to bradycardia. But after you increase the dosage of atropine, what will happen? You will be having tachycardia. Why? Now you will be having M2 blockade of postsynaptic neurons. M2 blockade of postsynaptic. I will be making the diagram tomorrow for you. Okay, don't worry. It was just ending the discussion. Okay, so remember this concept. So we have two receptors. I have taught you inhibitory M1, M2, M3. So you should be very much well versed with that. That's why I'm telling you, you are not knowing the basics, then you get lost where? You get lost where? In the medicine. You get lost in the drugs. That's why we are making long videos for you. Okay. So remember, I will repeat again, cardiovascular system, the effect is mostly on the heart rate. What happens initially, there is inhibition of presynaptic muscarinic receptors, that is M2 receptors, which will finally, in the initial, once you are administering the atropine drug, initially you will have bradycardia. But once you increase the dosage of atropine, there will be tachycardia because of the postsynaptic M2 receptor blockade. Now, this atropine, we are using, that's why we are using this in the arrhythmias like AV block, digitalis induced bradycardia, and there will be no effect on the BP, no effect on the myocardial contractility. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed this discussion. Tomorrow we'll be continuing its next part, that is taking in other organs we have to take, and then giving you the treatment of those what conditions you can use this. Okay, so see you all tomorrow. Take care. Have a nice day. Bye bye.